Okay, so we're going to paint a few scenarios to see if we can kind of think through this. So again, we have a crown. Let's see. So this is our wax up. The crown is waxed up. And the question is, what if there's a bubble in the investment material on the intaglio surface of the crown? So what's the intaglio? So let's jump to this slide here. Intaglio means the inside of the crown. The cameo means the outside, so the internal surface of the crown. So here's the example, right? We put the sprue. I know the sprue's in the wrong spot. I just did because of the pictures, okay? So in crucible, sprue, and we're going to fill that with investment material. But there's a little air bubble that gets trapped on the intaglio surface of that wax up, or of that crown. What's the next step after you invest? What's that? Yeah, so part of the casting process would be to take that investment material and do what? Put it in the oven. What happens when you put it in the oven? The wax will disappear, okay? So this depicts the wax disappearing. Then what do you do after the wax disappears? Well, you heat up the metal until it's molten, and you sling it in there, and it's filled with gold, okay? So you see how that little air bubble, how that affects the contour of the crown. So then you'll take it out, divest it, cut the sprue off. Now you go try to seat this crown on the tooth. What do you think is going to happen? It's going to be open margin and hyperocclusion because that little nodule is still there. So sometimes you'll have to go on the inside of the crown and remove that if you caught that there was a error there. Okay? So this will be an example of like a test question. We'll paint the scenario. There's an air bubble trapped on the intaglio surface of the crown before or during the investment procedure. What's going to happen to your crown when you try to seat it? So the answer in this scenario would be, well, it would be in hyperocclusion and open margin. So, right, assuming that you didn't correct for this error. Everybody with me? Okay. So how about another scenario? What happens if the die gets abraded before the wax up is completed? So let's pretend we had a sharp angle or a sharp point, and that sharp point got rounded off. So we'll be a little dramatic here, and what if you rounded it off like that, just because you abraded it? And then you made a wax up off of this die, right? So again, we'll run through the same steps. You'll invest, you'll burn out, you'll cast, take out the sprue, try to seat in the mouth. No good. Hyperocclusion, open margin. Okay. So this is the example that we had on the previous exam. What happens if you bevel the cusp after the provisional is made? So the blue crown there is our provisional. Okay. So we notice we're under-reduced, so we want to grind it more. So we take our burr and remove that little bit. And we have our same provisional, and we put it back on the tooth. Well, it's going to fit the same way. It's just going to be a little bit of a gap in between. Okay. So think about all the steps that you have in your fabrication process. Well, what if you get a bubble in your wax up? Well, what if you get a bubble in your impression material? What if you get a bubble in your investment? All these questions, yes? Yeah, so I'll try to, I'll paint the scenario as clear as I can. But you have to think of the positive and the negative. If you understand all the steps in the fabrication, then we should be able to figure out what the error is. Sometimes there's a big error, like open margin hyperocclusion. Sometimes the errors don't really amount to anything, where this would still be okay for a provisional to seat that. Just got a little extra space in there. You may lose a little retention resistance form, but it just depends on how much you beveled it. Okay? Any questions about this type of stuff? So you're going to see more of these questions on Wednesday. So the best way to study for those is to honestly to make up your own scenarios and try them out with your classmates and see if you guys can figure out all the differing processes and the way to think about it. Okay?